And since we're an all Zoom meeting, we need to do a formal roll call to convene the meeting. So do I have a motion to convene?
So moved.
And second? I hear something kind of in the background.
Yes,
Well,
yeah.
okay. Okay, do a roll call. Erwin,
Present.
Megan,
Present.
and Vince, I'm present. So we are convened, and hopefully Corey will join. She said she was going to be here. So the first item on the agenda actually is voting for officers, and this will be our first meeting since town meeting. And that's typically the time to pass the torch both for the chair and the clerk. So I kind of see if anybody would like to be chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee for the coming year.
Yeah, Vince, we had talked about it. I said no.
Yes.
Sorry to say.
And I remember that. And, you know, I chatted with Corey, and obviously she, like Megan, has got a number of family responsibilities that really, you know, kind of keep her from even attending some of the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm prepared to do it, although reluctantly. So, but I will do it.
Great.
I don't know if we formally need nominations since there's no other contenders at this point. So the other thing that we legally need is a clerk.
We have an, I'm sorry, we have an in-person attending.
Vince, just
Yeah.
as a point of order, could you have somebody make a motion for you to be the chair and then have a vote on that, and then the same thing as clerk? Or you can do them together, but you do want to take a vote on that.
Okay, yeah, we can do it now. All right, so what's on the table is a motion to elect me, Vince Carlson, as the chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee for the coming year.
All right, you can sit in the green chair.
So do I have a,
Second by Erwin.
okay, Megan?
Yes. Second. Yes, I elect you.
Corey, you just joined us. We're just in the process.
I'll fix the background. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, okay. Corey, you've just joined us. We're just in the process here of electing officers. And I'm the sole and reluctant but available candidate. So we just need a second and we can take a vote.
Second.
Okay, so Corey, how do you vote?
I vote for you.
Megan?
Vote for you.
Erwin?
Same, vote for you.
Vince? So that's passed. I guess I'm the new chair for the coming year. So the second officer on the agenda is the clerk. And Megan, you've been really the appointed clerk.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder about your opinions on the role and what you think you might, you know, be able to do during the coming year, you know, in terms of attendance.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to be very steady with it, but I do like being on the board, just not able to necessarily clerk. I tried last year and then we had that break, and then I wasn't able to fulfill my duties. So sorry about that.
Is the agenda.
Now, we did have a kind of a offline, Megan,
Mm.
email exchange, and there are some options.
Yeah.
They, could apply in part to you or entirely to other people. And, the thing that many committees do is that they have a rotating clerk.
Okay.
So that's one possibility. Second possibility is to have, a clerk assigned, but, understood that that clerk can't attend all meetings, that somebody else or the rest of the group would, kind of include as a lesser rotation. And the third is that, there can just be a single person that's appointed as the as the backup clerk. And I don't know from the, the electoral standpoint how that last option would work, but there's a lot of committees in Concord that basically rotate the clerk job. And I would say maybe that's even more common than having an appointed clerk. So, Megan, what are your thoughts? And, what are the thoughts of, the other committee members?
I just would hate to say yes to anything and then disappoint people, but I don't know. I'm not sure what to do. Yeah.
I don't know, Corey or Erwin, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm equally as reluctant. This is an election year, a
Right.
pretty critical one. And I am not going to be, I'm going to go down to Georgia to campaign. So I won't be here for a while. And all of my efforts are going to go in that direction up until November. So I too don't want to say yes and then just be unavailable.
Well, that's great going down to Georgia. It's certainly going to be a critical state.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and when Massachusetts is okay, so you need to be on the road to be effective.
Indeed. Erwin, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, rotating seems to make sense, but it does not rotate tours. It's a challenge.
Well, why don't we do it this way? I've been, doing up the minutes here since the last June. And because we're going through this, automated minutes thing, and I'll give you a little bit of an update on that. But since I've been doing that, really kind of dog fooding the process here with the expectation that it, could be applied much more broadly in terms of the way it's done town-wide. I'm, happy to kind of stay in that role, but it would be good if, maybe Erwin, you think you have time just in attending the meetings to, keep fairly good notes, just so that the things that I may be distracted on,
Sure.
Something that I have a backup source of information on.
Sure.
Vince, is there a way to recruit more people for the committee?
The committee actually used to be somewhat larger, I think,
Yeah,
and Carlin can, kind of ring in if, she's around, but she's, we were 7, I think, and we reduced it down to 5. The issue I think that applies now is that since the contract negotiations are going to wrap up and, hopefully be signed off on by the end of this year, I think, according to what, Jason has said, it's, uncertain exactly how the committee might be constituted after the end of this year. Traditionally, when there was only a cable committee and not one that had this kind of oversight, and even in the case of the PEG committee, it had oversight under somewhat unusual circumstances. The committee would essentially kind of go into a Rip Van Winkle sleep cycle for 10 years. So it doesn't.
Don't we need a committee so that the town doesn't usurp the money from the ratepayers in any way?
That is still an issue, although I don't think it's, I think you and I had discussed that briefly not too long ago, but there's a number of ways to handle that, and we haven't confronted that. I hope to confront it, or discuss it more broadly in the next meeting, because one thing that I did circulate and we discussed briefly were changes to the mission and the, charter, as the select board has assigned it. And one of those options was to take MMN and turn it into an enterprise fund, or even to revisit, the possibility of turning it into a 501c3 corporation or 3C corporation. But that's kind of still downstream, and I'm not sure how it's going to affect really having this committee extend beyond the end of the year. On the other hand, there's maybe nice reasons to do it.
Vince,
Yes, Terry.
I don't think that this particular discussion is on your agenda for today, but it should be added as a discussion. And then I could be more prepared to answer questions, and the public, would be notified, because I don't have the agenda in front of me. Is discussing your charge on your agenda today?
Well, no, it just came up in the context of electing a clerk.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you should put it on a future agenda, and we could talk about it. And I also saw Jason's hand up. I think Jason might have some information.
I was just going to point out that it's not legal for the town to take federally mandated Cable Act money and appropriate it in the general fund. So you don't really have to worry about that concern. But I agree with Terry that I think we did have it on the agenda last month, but it's not on the agenda this month. So
actually it is, it's item 7, but I didn't think we'd get to it in detail, and I don't think we will, based on the rest of the agenda. So but Terry, I think it's perfectly good and appropriate to defer that item at minimum until our next meeting. So why don't we plan to do that? Now, I believe that we still are going to need an elected clerk. And I don't know if the same person can be both the chair and the clerk. So can we have a nominal clerk? Erwin, would you be willing to be the nominal clerk?
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? I'll second.
The motion.
Okay, so how do we vote? Corey, how do you vote?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Erwin?
Yes.
Vince? Yes. So moved, and Erwin, you are now the clerk, for better or worse. Okay, moving on to item 3, minutes. I have circulated minutes for January, March, and April. And they, again, I've already gone over a part of this, in terms of the way that we've been dogfooding the minutes relative to the AI. And Zoom themselves has actually made great advances in the use of this AI companion, which I don't see it down on the bottom of my screen, but on most, if not all, of the meetings that I've been watching, the AI companion is something that's now down there as an icon at the bottom of the screen, I guess to both identify that things are being recorded and also that there are certain options that can be exercised during the meeting. So what you're seeing in the minutes that I circulated were the meeting for January. Now that meeting was one where we had a executive session. And as I reviewed it, it was somewhat difficult based on the ability of the AI and in terms of perhaps how it was described at the meeting to separate out the executive portion from the public portion of the meeting. So I did make some edits to them, which you're welcome to look at, but it's not ready for prime time or for something that we can vote on at this point and vote for, at least in terms of the open public portion of the meeting. The February minutes, which I didn't circulate, I think because February was posted late, but in any case, that also applied to February. The same situation in terms of an executive session and then an open session. So since that was the same, I didn't try to review it, personally. Now, starting with March, if you have had a chance to look at the March and April meetings, they were entirely open meetings, and they were even within this period of the last 5 months, they've shown some additional improvements by Zoom. And I see Zoom has made a couple of announcements in the past 5 months about enhancements that they've made. So I think they're worth looking at if you haven't looked at them. It's something that I can describe to you. I did get feedback from Cynthia, who had looked at the March meeting. And she noticed a number of things, some of which were just very minor corrections, some of which were quite significant. And I was aware of what the significant ones were. If you look at the disclaimer on the top of the meeting, I said it might be something to submit, but then with kind of a footnote, to say that, they might have to be resubmitted. But on further thought, and, that really doesn't seem very practical. So I think at this point that, we can say that none of the minutes through April are still ready for prime time.
Okay.
So we can end on that, although I do want to comment on what Cynthia had said, because it's a known issue with the AI to this point. And that is if there's a deliberation or a conversation during the meeting that involves multiple people, that the AI has a hard time keeping track of who's talking. And it also sometimes kind of loses track of what or it loses focus on what the track was, what was being discussed. And the way that occurred in the March minutes was when we were discussing the enterprise budget. And it was clear that it was getting confused in terms of whether Jason was describing things or whether other members of the committee, were, entering in with their comments. So, so I have to agree with, her viewpoint, and the fact that there was quite a bit of problems there. So with that, and in terms of moving on, if anybody's got any other thoughts. Oh, yeah, there is one thing I wanted to add. Knowing that the AI is still imperfect, but it's going to get there. Or at least I think it's going to get there. I had a conversation with Kari Tari about a month ago. And we discussed the process and, what the AI had been doing. She actually, agreed in a general sense that, was certainly a subject worth discussing, and among other things, because, it will really hopefully encourage participation in town government without knowing that it's kind of an overly by the book Robert's Rules of Order affair. Said that, trying to schedule some kind of a session, including Jason, obviously, and, whomever is now going to be, doing the work for the select board. It's an example of what, the minute keeping process is when other people are doing it. So that still is pending, although we didn't pin down a date this month, since there's a special town meeting when it's going to be the end of June or the middle of June. Is that, Jason, is that date pinned down yet? Do you know?
No, I'm not sure. The light board meeting?
No, the special town meeting.
We're going to pin it down tonight at the select board meeting.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming that everybody may still be busy then. So anyway, hopefully, take up the topic sometime early this summer. So moving on, unless anybody's got any comments on AI minutes overall.
Nope.
One way or the other. The other thing I might mention is that when I was clerk for the select board, I had replaced Bruce Lauer, who was previously a select board member and a longstanding participant in town government. She kept perfect minutes. They were very long-standing minutes. She was not a technical person, but she kept perfect minutes. So when the AI gets up close to that standard, that's a benchmark for when they'll be useful. So moving on, I see the next item is
Let's see what's the next item.
the Comcast contract negotiations, in terms of if there's anything, Jason, that we can discuss in open session in terms of, for instance, whether that, end of this year still seems like a reasonable wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, again, open session discussion. It's certainly our hope that we can come to terms. I think that we're not trying to rush this so that we don't settle for a deal. We'll negotiate as long as it takes, but we continue to meet. We met last week and had a good meeting with Comcast. We have another meeting scheduled for a few more weeks from now. We're going to take to some email discussions for a little while to see if we can move things forward over email, but we're definitely moving forward, so that's good. And I think we might be ready maybe at the June meeting for an executive session update if you want, or we can wait till the end of the summer. If we're going to skip some meetings for the summer, but it's definitely moving along. Terry and Sue have been great to have in these meetings, and it's Sue's perspective, especially having negotiated so many of these, is very valuable to understand what's possible from some of the other communities that she's represented. So both are a huge help.
I think, I don't know, we can discuss it. We discuss future meetings. In my opinion, I don't see any reason why, we shouldn't take the normal summer hiatus in July and August. And then in that case, Jason might be just, as you said, well, to think about having an executive session in September.
Yeah, I think that would be a good time. We'll have a lot to report by then. So
Anything else on this topic that anybody has?
I'm back, I'm like right in the middle of the meeting.
Okay, goodbye.
Hi.
I'll text you.
Okay, well, let's move on then. So the next topic is, I guess it's the MMN broadband update.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
So as you know, we just finished Concord Town Meeting, but we also did Carlisle Town Meeting the following week. And I'm sure you were all there and you all saw us, but at Concord Town Meeting, we had 6 cameras running. We were going back and forth between the auditorium and the gym. We live streamed it, and everything technically went very well. We live streamed it to our YouTube channel, also to our government channel 9. And I just checked YouTube, and YouTube has had over 3,000 views.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Good for you.
Night one is 1,500 views. Night 2 is 1,200 views, and night 3 is 650 views. So that's a lot even for night 3. So that was a popular one. So also wanted to share, we have a lot of activity happening here. We had someone come and borrow equipment from the West Concord Junction Cultural District Commission. We had 2 new students come in and we trained them on how to use a podcast, how to do a podcast. We had our 5th graders in again. They did another episode of their sports show. We had, is that you? We had another episode of Concord Stories podcast. And right now, as I speak, we have a teacher from the Chinese Club who is learning how to edit. She's working on the Lunar New Year that we filmed, and she's going to be editing that. And then we also had students come in and interview Joe Zellner in the studio, who I'm sure you all know him. And we're going to be putting that on. And in terms of new programming, the latest episode of our woodworking show is going to be released soon. And a few things we did around town. We covered the Holocaust Remembrance Day, League of Women Voters. And we also spoke with the Chamber of Commerce. They came here and we gave them a studio tour and they loved it. And we're kind of talking about maybe doing a Chamber of Commerce show. But that's just in the beginning stages. Any questions?
Before you open it up, I just want to piggyback on the town meeting thing, and however complicated you think this production is, triple it, because it is incredibly complicated with the amount of devices that we have and the timers and the overlays and the titles and everything. There's a huge amount of preparation that goes into this. It's usually months beforehand that we start. And did you mention Carlisle's town meeting as well?
Yes,
We have, yeah.
That
And so, yeah, Julie did a fantastic job. Her team did a fantastic job. And it's just so amazing to see what goes into these productions. So I just can't thank them enough for everything that they did for town meeting coverage.
No, thank you.
Well, I want to echo that. I think, the whole crew did a great job. And the only glitches that I noticed were, a few technical ones that I think were probably kind of more contractor related than anything that you guys did. Trying to remember I think there was a couple of things with the microphones in the auditorium, but
That's the contractor.
the other thing, the assistive listening devices seemed to work well. I had conversation with Bob Andrews, and he's a hypercritical, but it wasn't on the devices themselves. It was basically the fact that the guy that was checking them in and out really didn't know anything about them. Yeah. So if you weren't aware of what they were and how to use them, it would have been hard for people to do it, and that might be something that we should just pay attention to for future reference.
Does anyone else hear a clicking noise? Or is it just me?
I hear a clicking noise.
Yeah.
I hear it.
I don't, but
Mm.
I wanted to just echo Julie and Jason, what a really fantastic job the whole team did. That 3,000 views, that's amazing. And we had a lot of emotional articles. And
Yeah.
so it's important that people be able to see it.
Yes.
And great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did notice something, by the way, in the way that it's posted now, is that there's one version, Julian, correct me on this, but there's one version where all 3 sessions are in one video, and another one where you can look at them separately,
Exactly.
which is nice, you know, for people that don't want to have to check for 3 different versions of the town meeting. On the other hand, if you were, you know, specifically interested in the naming of the secondary school, you might go to that one and not pay attention to anything else, any of the other days, as many participants did.
Well, that was Jason's suggestion that we put it all together in one long video. Oh, I forgot to also mention, our Patriots, the Patriots Day Parade is now on YouTube.
Great.
Yeah. And we took some time editing that because again, we had 4 different cameras, different angles. And when you see it, you'll notice how thorough the coverage was from start to finish. So that's only a half hour. And yes, if you do decide to dive into all 3 town meetings in one video, it is 11 hours.
Oh my God.
Don't have that kind of attention span.
Carlisle finished in one night, just for everybody's information, before 10 o'clock.
Yes.
I also want to say thank you because I actually viewed it live. I had 100, you know, kids things and then got to see the end of it. So it looked amazing live, by the way.
Did you watch it on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we had 190 or 100
Yes.
something people streaming at one time, so that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, bravo.
Yeah, those are very nice viewing numbers. I had one other thought. Julie, you mentioned that you were going to do the second episode of the woodworking show, and I gather that's the one with Megan's dad. Is that right?
Leo, Woodworking with Leo, it's called.
That was a great job. You know, I think you guys did, you know, a good job in filming it. And Megan, I think your dad is a natural.
Oh, thanks, Vince. Yeah, I've known it. So I'm glad that he went and he wanted to do it and I wanted him to do it. And I helped him with the first one and then he's off and running. So I hope it keeps going. And we're really lucky to have you guys because it's such a professional operation that you run. So thank you.
Okay, moving on. So we are up to the PAC Awards presentation. And, you know, we had started covering some of that piecemeal. I don't know if everyone was here, but again, it's something that the PEG Access Advisory Committee has been doing for several years. The awards are usually in the form of a certificate. They go out for, you know, kind of outstanding and significant and notable programming during the year. I don't know if there's a, you know, kind of any standards that have been used other than that we presented a number of awards in the past. Let's see if I still see Carlin Reed in the audience here. I don't.
Vince, I'm here. If I
Oh,
can.
you are. Oh, okay. I wonder if you have any comments, you know, on that process, because you did the round last June, and that I guess was one of your kind of last acts.
It was a lot of fun. Carlin Reed, 83 West End, member of the Finance Committee, but speaking on my own behalf, I have to say that every time I do this. Purpose, I think, for these PEG Awards is to give recognition to good programming, but also the people behind the good program, and to have fun. So my recommendation, and we've done it a couple different ways, but my recommendation is you also consider including a news article to the Concord Bridge, listing some achievements, special recognitions, so that there's another way of memorializing what you guys did, especially this information about doing town meetings back to back with cameras and all sorts of Zoom stuff. That's not the sort of thing you normally see. It might be in the Barron Town annual report, but it'd be nice to read about it in the bridge, and then have a picture of someone shaking hands with someone else getting a certificate or something like that. So you've got a visual as well. That's my recommendation. Thanks. That's it.
That's great. Yeah, I noted that in the Concord Bridge. I think that's particularly useful. So the production process that we've used in the past in terms of the actual awards, which have basically been certificates, is that we've gone out and got that job done at a local print shop. I think Alpha Graphics is the one that was used the last time. I can check in with Carlin offline maybe to see if she has any recommendations on the utilization of that. And other than that, I wonder if anybody has any comments also on how the award should be distributed, who they should go to, and if there's any thoughts that we haven't discussed so far. I don't know, Corey, if you had any thoughts on awards.
No, I haven't. I'd be happy to volunteer to work on refreshments for the ceremony.
Oh, that sounds useful.
Vince, maybe you can't see because you're on your iPad, but I've got my hand raised if it's okay to speak.
Sure.
I just wanted to offer to help whoever is going to be working on those certificates. I'm happy to help get you information on contributions from the MMN team so that they can be honored and for their accomplishments throughout the year. I can get that information to you guys. So you just tell me what you want to do and we'll help you do as much as possible.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, we had discussed, I think before the meeting started, maybe doing a series of short clips, and I guess those could be, crew selected to the extent that, every member of the crew could, chime in on what they thought their best work was and, have that included. Is that, useful way to go, do you think?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's useful, yeah.
Erwin, you have any thoughts?
No. Sorry.
Megan, you can nominate your dad.
Yeah, I'll tell him, he'll be thrilled. No, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And who do we want anybody who would contact the bridge? Do we know?
Do you want to volunteer?
Oh, no, I'm actually a little sick, and
Oh,
this time of year for kids is like, I can't even breathe. So I wish I could.
Yeah.
oh.
But
The reason I mention that is that, the bridge has done some articles on you, as I recall.
that's true. I mean, if somebody would get it together, I'd be happy to send it over. I just don't know if I could do it justice of the article. Or maybe, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just wondering out loud how we get into the bridge.
I can do that.
Okay.
We're just submitting an article and a photo, right?
I guess it would be maybe a kind of a self-selection thing on their part. Yeah, why don't you discuss it with them, Corey, and see what kind of emerges.
Okay.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? If not, we're actually going ahead faster than I thought. Here, let me see what we are. We are at 4:14. And did I hear some people say that they wanted to get out of here before 5 or earlier than 5?
Yes, yeah, 4:45 at the latest for me,
Yeah.
4:45.
4:30 for me.
Oh.
preferably 4:30.
Okay, well, I had discussed the mission statement. And let me just go over the 3 options, see what people's general thoughts are on that. I think we'd already covered, substantially, Terry, what you had chimed in on that. So the first one was, that there's just be some kind of a Rip Van Winkle process that takes place. The second one would be that we change the charter in a kind of a more substantial way. And this really includes some of the topics that the Town Meeting Study Committee is covering. So part of that, I think, really is dependent and maybe, overrides the things that I had written down, a couple of months ago. But it's basically that there had been 2 things in the more recent town studies that applied directly, or, well, not directly, but indirectly in fairly close ways to the work that the PEG Access Committee has been doing. And part of the charter of the PEG Access Committee was, to provide advice to the select board on potential upcoming changes in the industry and the technology. The way that's kind of occurred, I think, more broadly, in the town committee, study committee, is that those comments came directly from findings of the town advisory or study committee back in 1996, and also from the broader town governance committee in 2017, I guess it was. The committee in 2017 had recommended the formation of a technology committee. And that seemed to me to be a good idea, just because it was addressing all of the many technology changes that had taken place, particularly in the last 20 years. However, it didn't occur to me, what did occur to me was that it was perhaps too narrow a definition, and it should have been something like town futures. Again, recognize that a lot of those town features are technology, but lots of them are for other reasons, including demographic changes and things of that nature. Going back to the town meeting group in 1996, excuse me, their recommendation was to have a communications committee. And that was broader than simply technology. It was primarily really in being able to provide more information, I think, on town governments, on town meetings, and in the process of doing so, overall to, including getting more people interested in town government. But there was certainly a technology aspect to that, which they mentioned, and even in that time, the internet was starting to emerge. So that would have been part of that. And I think, as the study committee reviews it, they can certainly review it in that regard. And I plan at some point, when they get organized to, pass on to what some extent had been discussed in similar terms by the League of Women Voters in their governance committee. So at this point, I still think it's worth seeing if the PEG Access Committee should morph into something which in fact would end up being completely different. And that would be something along the lines of a connectivity and information committee. And there's several ways to describe that. It's partly limited by language. So the three terms that come up are communications, connectivity, and really information. And there's probably a limitation of language that nobody is ever going to have quite the same understanding of those terms. But it is something that is missing from the current Envision 2030 report altogether. And that is that there's really no discussion of technology at all. The only time the internet is mentioned once is in a negative sense, or the town vitality, or when the vitality of town businesses is mentioned, and it's negative. It says, will the internet draw business away from some of the businesses in the town? So clearly there is something there that needs to get added somewhere along the line. And so in that regard, I don't know if it deserves any further discussion today, but again, if we take it up in June, I will try to provide a kind of a somewhat more coherent version of what I've just described here.
I mean, is there any appetite for something like this? Is it a standalone, or would it just live under an existing committee?
There's a good deal of academic work that has been done in this regard. And one of the things that I will do is I will, provide kind of a collection of things that I've looked up. What it has to do broadly with is the role of PEG overall as a medium for what's called, local communication, local events, town-related, municipal-related events. And this goes back to the, kind of the founding of PEG, which goes back to, I think, 1982, basically. And the requirement then, and the reason why, it even got started at all, is that as it became clear that cable TV was going to take over from broadcast television, that people would be more limited in their ability to get information locally. And that has turned out to be the case. We've seen that evolving for the last 50 years. We've seen the decline of newspapers. We've seen that when even the local newspapers, report that they become shadows of their former selves because of, business considerations. They've been acquired to the point where the Concord Journal was no longer even including many articles about Concord. And that, of course, is the primary reason for the founding of the Concord Bridge. So I can include some of that, and I certainly haven't digested it all, but it is really kind of the basic notion, in looking forward as to, how Concord overall handles communications and technology that's related to that topic in town.
Okay.
And that's kind of a long-winded and not particularly systematic thought of, what I hopefully can make a little bit clearer with, by the next meeting. I'll try to do it anyway.
Okay.
And going on from there, does anybody have any further thoughts at all? Moving on from there, I think maybe we're going to get through most of our agenda here. I don't know if actually we've ever had any, formal liaison reports. We don't have anybody here from COA, which is, the primary input that we've gotten from in the past. And I'm not sure, I guess we need to check and see what's happened with the board there. They do have a new executive director. And I sat in on one of his sessions, and one of the topics that came up, in fact, was better internet service. So I can provide some information on that. What I think, Jason, that, the way the discussion went was, some problems with Comcast, and also, a question on when people were going to be able to get Concord broadband.
Are they customers that have looked into getting Concord broadband? Or are they just curious about the process, or?
Some of them even have it, I think. There was some pricing issues, although that wasn't, one of the things that came out as an outstanding issues. There were a couple of people from Concord Green that wanted to get an option, I guess. And Corey, I think you and I have talked about this a little bit.
Yeah,
And
I don't think we can revisit that with broadband until the price is, I think this is where you and I left it, where the price is going to be lower than what's offered through Comcast. I know people are in the process of switching right now. People are switching to AT&T. But it's just a few folks that are kind of technically savvy that are in the process of doing that. And they're doing it with their phones also.
one of the other things that came up, and I think we discussed this briefly at the last meeting, Jason, it's that Comcast has come up with a new pricing schedule under a kind of a category of service that they have called Comcast Now. And it's kind of a service that represents, I think, their, transition into all streaming all of the time. I think they recognize that people are cable cutting, quote unquote. That's obviously, something that's a widely discussed term at this point. And I do notice that even within the past several months, is that in the the trade press is reporting that Comcast has actually been losing internet subscribers recently. And it's for reasons, I think, like the ones that Corey mentioned. And the other category is, of course, what's called fixed wireless. And that means that now both, Verizon and AT&T, I believe, have set-top boxes that basically replace your set-top cable TV box with a set-top box, that can provide internet service. And T-Mobile in particular is being very aggressive about their pricing. It's something like $50 a month for unlimited speed, which, they claim is very high, and apparently is very high in some locations, but not as high in others. Obviously depends upon the cell tower, area. So that Comcast Now, I just looked into it recently, and it was originally only available in part of their footprint. There were doing it at least on a test basis in Georgia and a couple of other places, but it looks like they have now rolled it out all over. So it means that something, even for people in Concord, when they become aware, would actually be able to drop one of their higher cost plans, or typically the whole triple play if they wanted to. Yes. And replace it with a combination of these Comcast Now services, because in addition to the internet service, the Comcast Now services also include a wireless service, for which hotspots are available, and a television service. And the television service includes a similar mix of channels. It's about 40 or 50 channels that are available on broadcast TV. So it is a threat. It would have previously been a threat to them, but they have transitioned enough out of that I think that they see a way to kind of move out of that. And that this is something again that Sue is probably more conversant with than I am. So again, this might be something that we can bring up again in September.
Sounds good.
Yes.
So aside from that, I have put one final item on the agenda here, unless there are some other public comment, and I see, whom do we have here? It doesn't look like we have any general public people here from what I can see. I can't see quite as much on my iPad, so if anybody sees anybody else.
Nancy Pierce is here.
Oh, good. Nancy, I don't know if you've been ringing in, or maybe if you have some comments on Carlisle or anything else.
I've been here. No, I don't have anything to add. Nothing happening in Carlisle, as far as I can tell. Thank you.
Okay, so we have covered the public comments. The item that I put in last was a recap, really just to again note the votes that we had taken in the major topics, and this is for the benefit of the AI, among other things, because the AI seems to kind of be more intelligent if its memory of the last 2 hours or whatever the case may be is tweaked. There are some other kind of embellishments, Julie, that you and I think had talked about a little bit, that actually are going to add to the accessibility of the YouTube viewership, at least. And one of those ones is that we talked about the way that the YouTube video for each meeting is chapterized. And I don't know if you had a chance to look into that, or even to notice that I do believe it requires an administrative setting that's turned to on to be available. And I think that YouTube has some kind of a mysterious formula under which they do start chapterizing the each video that is included in their library. But I really don't want to delve into it today, but it's actually one of the most useful features. For instance, in the case of that 11-hour town meeting broadcast, by utilizing the chapters in that one, you could go to the specific topic that you were interested in, or specific topics. So if you were interested in the naming of the middle school, you could have gone to that specific topic out of the whole 11 hours of the video. And that's something that really, once it's enabled and working, is simply a matter of really education and familiarity for people to be using, really much more efficiently utilize their viewing time. But that being said, if there's any other comments at all? The votes we had, aside from the pro forma ones, or the election of officers. And that was it.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved to
Second.
second. So all say Corey,
Pardon
Yeah.
me?
Erwin?
I moved the
Aye.
question. I don't think it's been seconded.
Oh, okay, was seconded, yeah. So
Oh, you're taking the vote. Yes, sorry.
Erwin,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Vince, yes, so we are adjourned.